When people speak of religion or spirituality, or when we speak of it, we inevitably have all these concepts of what it is, and all these persuasions according to whatever source that we've studied, whatever teachers or gurus we've studied with. And much of what we say is just a repetition of what we've been told, of what we've been conditioned to believe. And most of humanity, you could say, are perfectly unwilling to go beyond belief, to go beyond their religious conditioning, their political conditioning, and unable to do so. You could say they are unable to go beyond conditioning. And the very idea of beyond is just an idea. There is just this manifestation, there is just this happening, over which human beings have little or no real control. And one thing I like to demonstrate with people, to show people, is about this, to demonstrate in their own experience how little control we have, which some people find frightening. I was speaking to a psychotherapist recently in one of my classes, and she really took against this idea. And I just happened to say, are you aware that you are defending yourself? You're starting to move into a defensive and a very closed off position. Just to point out what was happening, playfully. So we begin at the level of the mind. We can say, do I know what my next thought is going to be? Do you know what your next thought is going to be? Look and see. Perhaps you could just take a moment. And your brain might have some clever remark. I was talking to someone about this, and she gave a clever remark. Yeah, I know what my next thought is going to be. Yeah, and it's da 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 da. So beyond cleverness, if we can lay cleverness aside just for a moment, because we are such clever beings, we human beings, aren't we? We're not necessarily functioning at truest intelligence yet, but we have chosen to be clever. And Barilong once said, you can either be clever or intelligent. The whole world is extremely clever, but it's not intelligent. So let's just examine for a moment. If you want to stay with this video, perhaps you could play along. So do I know what my next thought is going to be? And look and see. The answer is no. Nobody knows what their next thought is going to be. Now this is where it becomes really interesting. And for many people, they stop at this point. Or they will not even consider this point. And if you've gone this far into the video, perhaps you're starting to even to look at this yourself, and to consider this with me, as a game, if you like, as a play, as a leela. So I clearly see I do not know what my next thought is going to be. Similarly, do you know what your next action is going to be? And we can look at the very small actions, like I'm moving my hand around, to begin with. Do you know what your next action is going to be? Look and see. So we can see clearly, if you keep watching, those little movements that we do, over which we don't really have any control. 1 moment. Hello? Yeah, I teach Tai Chi and Qigong, yes. No, it's not. What's a good time for you? Evening or daytime? Have you done Tai Chi or Qigong before? Okay. Okay. Most of my classes are a combination of Qigong and Tai Chi. So the first half an hour is Qigong, the second half is Tai Chi. If you're happy to do both, or I just have I specialise on a Saturday morning class with just Qigong. So whatever you can make, really. Yeah, I do. Yes. That's at St Mark's Church, and it starts at 10 AM till 11. Yeah. Yeah, anyone can come along, as long as you're relatively healthy and you don't have any sort of ailments that you need to check out with a doctor or anything like that. That's £7 a class. Okay. Excellent. See you tomorrow then. Cheers then. Bye. So, we don't know. Now this is really, if you can stay with this folks, this is absolutely enormous. So you can see that you don't know what your next thought is going to be. And for some this is just too terrifying to even consider. When I first saw it with clarity, there was a moment of terror. And a friend of mine sort of made some casual remark on Facebook about that. And I could clearly see that he was just being intellectual about the whole enterprise, because when you see it, it's startling. It is truly startling. Now, I'm not saying you have to be terrified or to stay in terror, but let's just look and see what happens. So, I do not know what my next thought is going to be. Similarly, I do not know what my next action is going to be, and we can examine just initially just this very small actions, the lifting of the toes, the fluffing of the hair, or whatever it is. Now see the lack of control there. Now when we see that, we can do any number of things. We can quickly stop seeing it, shut it down, and carry on being in control or asserting control and fighting for control. And I'm not saying that's wrong. The whole of nature is looking at dominance, is looking at getting a better position. So how can that be wrong? So you can see it, but you can also have the choice, if you like. There's no choice really. It becomes interesting to inspect. Let's just at that level, interesting to inspect. Now let's look outside. So we see that we don't know what my next thought is going to be. You don't know what your next action is going to be. Stay with it if you can. See it clearly. Now what's happening out here? We don't know what's going to happen next. Car's just gone by. Little boy has just gone by. I didn't know that was going to happen. Also, like these little actions here, over which I have no control, and I seem to have some control here. I can apparently choose to bring my hands into a prayer position. So there seems to be some choice. But let's just have a look at this. I didn't choose that car to come along. I had no control over that car coming along. So you could say there's no control over thought, there's no control over these little movements, and there's no control over what happens. And because of that, human beings desperately always fight to be in control. Now, we are in nature. We are in nature. It is about survival here. Survival of the fittest. That's how it is in nature. So, all God's animals are intensely aware. They have an awareness that human beings, we don't quite comprehend at the moment, because we've chosen to think instead of to see, and to think instead of to really hear. And what happens if we start really seeing, really hearing, really feeling, while we start to become alive? And it's an aliveness that religions cannot control. So they will, I'm not saying they will necessarily do this, but what tends to happen with prophets and great beings is they tend to get killed or shut up. It's the way of things here. Anything that rocks the status quo, that causes a seismic shift in awareness, is a great threat to the ruling egos. And the world is dominated by that which you could call ego, if you like, which is still the play of the divine. So, do I know what my next thought is going to be? No, I don't. Do I know what my next feeling is going to be? Do I know what the next sound I'm going to hear is going to be? Do I know what my next movement is going to be? Now, this is waking up. We can go to sleep in religious traditions, and I'm not knocking the traditions either, because there is a great nourishment that can be had and enjoyed from traditions, but also a great sleep can also happen. But it doesn't have to be that way. You could be asleep outside of the tradition, so I'm not knocking any traditions. The tradition of atheism or the whatever it is. Oh, no siree. I wouldn't dare. Oh, goodness me. But look and see. Then you can ask the question, who is in control? Who is fighting to stay in control? Who is watching the breath? Who is watching the mind? Have a look and see. Namaste.